And good morning, everybody. We have now, for the second time, started up hybrid events, and it's so nice to see people in the audience. During the pandemic, we did only virtual. Also, welcome to those joining us virtually. What I will, first of all, did you have a good session yesterday?
Yes.
Very, very good. Yeah, we will continue all through the week. What I will address you on today is what we have been through in these 30 years of our existence. And I have called my presentation Building Sustainable and Resilient Communities, the perspective of the International Emergency Management Society. Forward, okay. And first of all, welcome to this event, which is then happening here in South Africa, and gathered quite a few people and young students here at Stenden, South Africa, in cooperation with Rhodes University. And the main topic here has been crisis, emergencies, and disasters, a continuum of challenges and opportunities in the 21st century. We have about 100 presentations during the week, so this is one of our largest conferences ever, and all these authors comes from more than 30 countries. Then look at what happens in the world at the moment. The world is at risk, and it's facing more disasters with much higher frequency and impact. That's a fact. In addition, we have war and we have the pandemic, so we have experienced a lot the last years. Some statistics. In 2022, the world faced 387 natural hazards and disasters, and those resulted in 30,000 lives and loss, and more than 185 million was affected. Natural disasters caused a global economic losses of 313 billion in 2022. Big numbers, and we have to be prepared that these will increase in the future with the climate change. And I also added on this picture that only half of this was insured. So, but still also insurance is paying for these disasters. So I like to take us back to what Obama said. He said, we are the first generation to feel the impact of climate change and the last generation that can do something about it. And I think you agree with that statement. And what I say in this slide, we are at the tipping point affecting human lives and livelihoods. I told you increasing frequency, magnitude, and number of people affected, widening inequalities among populations worldwide, worsening poverty and deprivation, COVID-19, global pandemic, we might have a new one, and the Russian attack on Ukraine is a disaster. I listed some of those things which we see now, the global scenario of disasters and climate change. And you can just pick for this from this long list of earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, floods, landslide, desertification, air pollution, pest attacks, declining water tables, everything we're facing. I'm not going into each of them. What I like to say is it's a critical urgency for multi-stakeholder engagement. This is something we have to try to solve together. This is not a one-man's task. Everybody have to come together to create an enabling environment for a marginalization and weaker section through inclusive, gender-sensitive, participatory, and holistic approaches. And I was in India at the C20 summit, which gave input to the meeting the G20 have in India now. And I urged then that among the G20 platforms, the civil society platform C20, where I was a speaker, are showing the courage to speak truth to the world leaders of the powerful G20 member countries. We have to reach those who are making the decision on the high level. And this summit that took place in India, actually, this is the G20 countries. They were in Indonesia last year. They were in Indonesia, and now they were in India, where I was allowed to be a speaker. And they go to Brazil, and we see if we also can come and speak at that event. Again, continuing with the current situation indicates the need for a quantum leap of transformational leadership by innovative and disruptive solutions. And also financing. All have a cost, and it has to be financed. And it also needs multidisciplinary professionals to work together with training, with capacity building, education, and certification. And we do our part of that.
I apologize to interrupt. Apparently the slides are not moving in the virtual stream. So,
Okay.
Try maybe to flip now to the next one. Let's see what happens.
Okay, there we go. I had the same problem in India and I didn't notice. Thank you, Ronan. This happened. We are emergency managers, so we have to solve the problems. And our organization, we are engaged in trying to do better education. We have done certification. We have meetings that we all can express our views and try to do something with this, and also notify with the documents to the higher level. And having the opportunity to be in India and addressing more than 1,000 people with influence, that was a great step. And I believe you all know that established global networks need to reach their targets. United Nations have been involved in quite a few. I mention here the Sendai framework for disaster reduction, the Sustainable Development Goals, the Paris Agreement on Climate Change, and the new Urban Agenda. But they are still behind, and they have to try to reach their targets. With that introduction, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about TIEMS and what we do, and can we add anything and help in getting a better world concerning safety and emergency. And during the days you have been here, you know who we are, so I don't want to repeat that. But we are a voluntary organization, so all we do that is done on a voluntary basis. But what do? We have a vision, and we say TIEMS inspires to be the leading organization for international emergency management professional development. And with a mission saying TIEMS is a global forum for emergency management and disaster risk reduction that builds capacity to prepare for, respond to, and recover from disasters and climate change. And how do we work? We work to achieve this mission through the exchange of information, innovation, and good practices in education, training, and certification, and research and development activities. This I've told you before, and that we do conferences like this one once a year, and we move it around the world. We do webinars, we do research and development activities, and we have our international certification. And lately we have taken up emerging technologies like AI, data analytics, and communication tools, which we think, even if they say it's a scary with the chat, the GPT AI, but we think it could be very valuable in the work we do in emergency management. Find, for example, lessons learned, go through lessons learned and come up with solutions and ideas, but have the man in the room. We are addressing the Sustainable Development Goals, which you all know, I believe, in our network in different communication activities and research and development projects. So who are we? We have now a board of 12 people reaching from, I think, 12 countries. So here you see the name of these people. I'm leading a quite experienced and good group, with Roman on the middle in the lower row, being responsible for Africa. We have then a regional director for each continent. And we have, around the world, we have established teams, 16 chapters, as you see from these flags. And our idea is to think globally but act locally, because it's locally things have to be done, and we have to have the communication on a global level. So where have we been through all these years? We were formed or established in Washington, D.C. in 1993. It was a group of international experts. We joined in a conference. It was an ESA computer conference in Washington, D.C. We met in a hotel room and we formed the society. And since then, we have been through many countries, as you see here. We are now in South Africa. Plan is India, is established to be next year. And then we have Costa Rica and we have New Zealand on the plan. And what I like to say, a TIEMS annual conference journey around the world has been an amazing tour through different cultures and cuisines, and a learning and exchange of experience of different ways of doing emergency management. And I think this is important. We have to understand our different culture. We have to value it. We have to see and exchange it, because we have to learn something from each other. The recent years actually started back in 2006. We were engaged in the research, and these are the research projects we have been doing. Most of them have been funded by the European Union, and that's also where TIEMS have its most financial support. I'm not going into all of them, but I will take some look at a few of them so you know what we are doing. But the presentation is available. If you click on the different one, you will be led to the websites and tell you what we are doing. But before I go further and talking about research, I show you a picture of Snezana Knesic. She was from Croatia. She was a professor at Split University. She was the vice president, and she did play a major role in getting teams into different research projects. Unfortunately, she passed away last year, and in her memory, we have established the Dr. Snezana Knesic Memorial Award to the best student papers in the TIEMS annual conference on 2023. We started this last year with giving away awards to 3 best students, and also with a small monetary value, 200 euro for the best one, 100 for the next best one, and 50 euro for the third one. In addition, which also Roman told you in the opening, we will also have a best paper for this conference. This is to the memory of Snezana. Did a great job for TIEMS, and all of us miss her. Then a little bit back to the different projects we have been doing. We did a project called Asset. This was about pandemic, and actually it was before the pandemic, so we knew a little bit when it started. But what we were doing was looking into communication, because after the alarming outbreak in Mexico of the 2009 H1N1 pandemic, the World Health Organization, this might be disastrous. It happened, it didn't get disastrous. And then all the speculation came up. Why do they do this? Do they support the pharmaceutical companies to sell drugs, etc.? So the idea of this project was to restore confidence between the public and the authorities. So we looked into this, was a great project, and when the pandemic came, we knew a lot about how to handle this. The next one will show the difference of the things we are involved in. This is a project called Heracles, and this is about cultural heritage, because cultural heritage is our background and our foundation for the future. And they need to be protected and stay alive. And they are threatened by the climate change. So we looked into how can we protect these different sites for against climate change. And we had three different sites which we did demonstrate. We developed a platform, and there was a medieval town, Gubbio, in Italy. It was a wall from medieval times. And in the harbor of Crete was the Venetian fortress, and also the Knossos Palace Heraklion in Crete was the three ones we applied our research on. So this was an interesting project and with good results, but it shows the variety of all the things that has to be handled in an emergency. We were asked by the World Bank to participate in a project looking at the civil protection typology, good practice and economic returns. And we contributed. They looked at the different countries in the world, and we contributed with Australia, China, and Ukraine, where we had our chapters. And this came up with actually very good overview and conclusions. For some reason not given, World Bank decided not to publish the report. We have the report and we use the information from it. For some reason they didn't publish it. Maybe it showed the differences and the need for certain countries to get financial support in the civil protection. I don't know. The last project I just want to mention here is the Impetus project, which is a smart city solution for improved resilience. And this is just finished, and you see on the right side here the different things has been developed and integrated on a platform. And we applied this in the city of Oslo, where I live actually, and also in Padua in Italy. And I can mention one thing, for example, weapon detection, for example, in a group, and alarming things on the internet that something might happen. So these are interesting solutions, which was the conclusion of this project. Then I don't want to go much into this. I'm a little bit late now, I see, on the our certification development process. But that's what we now will discuss in the panel after I'm finished. Then we go on. Next year, we have our annual conference in India. We will have the regional director for Asia, Vinod Menon, will tell about their plans for next year. It will be at about the same time, and it will haven't decided yet where, but we will probably know that at the end of this conference. And you are all welcome, and start saving money to come to India. Thank you. That is what I have. While it takes up my next introduction, we are now looking into the TIEMS, TQC, and TQAC certification in a panel. And I think the guys are online. With this time, I will not use much time on telling about the certification. We had a session yesterday for the full day, so those who were there, they know the details. And those who like to know more details, they can come on Friday, where I do the same. And now I have a panel waiting, which will, this time, we like to look at our certification in relation to other existing certification worldwide.
So Poland was first one.
Yeah, okay. Wait a second. I will do an introduction who will be in this certification. Yeah. And you can take up
Just one second. I'll quickly go into the slide now to see if it shares properly.
Okay.
Right, Kyle, if you can just quickly give me a heads up, or Marjorie, to see if the slides are moving. Okay, so
No.
Hi, Roman. We
Are the
see your
slides?
yep, we
Are
see
the
your
slides
screen,
moving?
but it's the presenter view. So we're seeing the notes section on the right side of it.
Okay. Okay, so. It's fine, let's just leave it like this. It should be okay. If we have any problems, we will take it further. Okay.
Okay, I will do a very short and brief introduction. What we are saying in this panel is TIEMS International Certification, TQC and TQAC, compared with other certification schemes worldwide. And I have lined up here. First, we will hear from our host, the South African certification by Owen Becker. Then we will go to Japan and listen to Yosuke Okita. And after that, we will have the European by Sergio Pirone. And then we weren't able in time to get someone to present IIM and Australian certification. But Sandro will present some slides. And happily, we have Shyla Clark here in the audience. So after all the presentations, she will add and comment on the IIM certification and also take questions if necessary. And this morning, I got a message from Russell Dippy, who is one of our certified TQC candidates, and he was willing also to answer question and comment on the Australian certification. So we have a very strong panel with a lot of experience from Australia all the way to US. Unfortunately, nothing from South America, but we will find out later. So now we will try to look at this in the perspective of we do it on the global level, and what we will now see what that we do in the different countries. I will first just shortly, briefly tell what is TIEMS International Certification, TQC and TQAC. TQC is for those with experience. TQAC are for those with academic competence and education, but doesn't have the experience. Everything goes online, and it goes in these 4 phases, namely application online. It will be valued by the teams, the 3 boards, and first the compliance, and after that examination online with proctoring, and then awarding certification. Sandro Bologna, who will present briefly Australia and IIM, he was instrumental in developing this system, and we are very thankful. Everything which is done with this system is done on a voluntary basis. The only payment we done to the guy that developed this on the Moodle platform. Here it tells about the 3 levels we have. we have the different, we have examination. You don't have to read this, I can just tell. TQC and TQC examination after the candidates have gone through the system. Then we have recertification, and for those, for example, academic that have the TQAC certification, they can upgrade when they get the experience. And for you, South African, we have actually 3 in the system. 1 is already certified, Emma Chapman, if you know her. And Roman is waiting to do his exam. And we also have I don't remember the third name, but South Africa is very strong on this. And we have Kelly McGuire was the third lady. And if all those who were listening to me yesterday presenting it will like to, on time going into this, we will soon have quite few here in South Africa being certified. I look forward for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation to address the conference, and to those that are online as well. Great to have you all aboard. I'm going to give a short perspective of what professionalization is in a South African context. The Disaster Management Institute of Southern Africa has been in existence for over 30 years. And one of the objectives has always been to professionalize disaster management in South Africa. And after many years, we've been finally accredited by the South African Qualifications Authority. But I'll take you through that in a moment. I'm just going to show you what I'm going to discuss. I'll be discussing the SACPA accreditation process, the registration criteria for registration as a professional, the role of a professional body, and then in South Africa we have a document called the Local Government Municipal Staff Regulations, and I'll explain that at the conclusion of the presentation. So the SACPA stands for the South African Qualifications Authority. It is the body that controls all education and training in South Africa. It's got 3 legs. The first leg being the higher education, which is your academic institutions. Then you've got the Quality Council for Trades and Occupations, which is a parallel system, but it looks at occupational qualifications. And then you've got UMALUSI, which is your basic education. So those 3 councils exist, and professional bodies fall under the higher education framework. So the MISA is recognized as a non-statutory, and I'll explain that shortly, professional body with the South African Qualifications Authority. Now, there are 2 different types of registration. They are all registered as professional bodies, but a statutory body is enacted by law. It's an act that establishes that professional body, and it equates to what might be called a charter in the British system. So where you'd have a chartered accountant or a chartered secretary, it's a royal charter that is that has established that profession. So in South Africa, you have the engineering profession, the medical profession, etc., that are all established in terms of different statutes. Non-professional bodies are bodies that are governed by their constitutions, and they're established and governed in terms of a constitution. They only become statutory if some law requires that you have that form of registration, and I'll discuss that at the end of the presentation. So with the recognition of the Institute as a professional body for disaster management, it also allows the Institute to award 4 different categories of registration. The first one being a disaster management professional, that is the highest. The second one is the disaster management practitioner. The third one is the disaster management associate, and the entry level is the disaster management technician. We also have a category of affiliate membership. It is not a registration, but that is anybody that affiliates to the Institute. It allows you to get journals. It allows you to get participate in conferences and workshops, etc., normally at a reduced entry rate or registration fee. So as I say, the 4 that we see now are only professional registration. The other one is not a professional registration. You can get all this information on the DMISA website. It's disaster.co.za, and it just explains all the requirements in terms of the different categories of registration. And it also has information about the Institute, its history, and the conferences, etc. Now, registration criteria. How do we award membership to somebody who applies to register? Firstly, we examine the knowledge that that person has. So you have to submit all the certificates that you've attained, plus you need to submit your academic record. So we will then assess in terms of your academic record. We also look at the non-SACPA accredited courses, your short courses, your in-house courses, and that also counts towards the knowledge that you have. The requirements, there are academic qualifications that are required, and that is supplemented by the short courses. The second thing we look at is skills, and skills is the application of that knowledge. So we look at the curriculum vitae of the person, we look at the job description, we get a letter from the employer that states the job that they are doing, and there are also 2 summaries of experience that need to be submitted, indicating the type of work and the level of work that has been performed. And then experience, and that again is picked up from the documents I've just mentioned, the CV and the records of jobs or work that has been performed. Now, what is also assessed is what is the appropriate level. So to be a technician, it's basically an entry level. So you have a minimum qualification and experience. When you get to the associate level, it equates to what is normally a disaster management officer post. It's somebody who can operate on a semi-independent level. When you get to the practitioner, it is a person from senior disaster management officer up into the supervisory and lower management levels, and that is a person who has a certain degree of independent practice. When you get to the professional, that is normally a person in a senior position or the head of a center, and those people have independent practice, total independent practice. So it's equated in a way to Bloom's taxonomy, where you look at the level of complexity of what is being done. I'm not going to go into more detail on that. And then there's another leg. So if you don't meet criteria in one or more of those areas, you can be recognized for prior learning if you have, say, a basic qualification, but you have 30 years experience, for instance. and that would be substantiated by the documentation. And in that case, if you want to go the RPL route, you have to submit 5 summaries of work that has been performed so that we can see the diversity of experience that you've obtained. So that is the only difference in the registration process. Everything else is the same, except for the RPL route. You have to have 5 summaries of experience that need to be submitted. A role of a professional body is really more about the person that you're serving, but it's also about developing the professional. So the first thing is you have a code of practice. So what is that person with that registration allowed to do? And that is what your code of practice is. Coupled to that is a code of conduct. So again, it's basic ethics and accepted practice that is expected from a professional. And then the development of the professional is to continuously develop that person, and DEMISA requires the accumulation of 20 continuing professional development points in a 2-year cycle, and certain of those can be carried over to subsequent years. Now, I've said in the beginning that DEMISA is a non-statutory body, but the Department of Cooperative Governance has issued a document. It's actually a regulation called the Local Government Municipal Staff Regulations. It's about a 600-page document, and 11 of those pages are dedicated to the disaster management professional. So it's basically a code of competency for a disaster management person that is working in the field. And there are 4 categories. There's the assistant disaster manager, disaster management officer, the senior disaster management officer, and the head of the center. So for each of those categories, you are linked to a DEMISA registration, and that makes it now compulsory for any person that is appointed in the public service, whether they already there and they're appointed into a new post, or somebody that enters the public service in any one of those fields, are required to have the level of registration that is set out in these regulations. They were published on the 20th of September 2021, and they became effective from the 1st of July 2022. So it's now compulsory if you enter or if you are advanced in the field of disaster management, that you have to have a level of registration. And that is contained in the document. There's the 11 pages is actually called the competency framework that makes up those regulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So thank you for your kind introduction. And actually, I did some researches on the comparison of Japanese certification systems in disaster and emergency management, and also the CEM and the TQC, which I will present tomorrow. So in today's discussion, presentation, I want to focus on rather the Japanese 2 certification systems. So this is just a starting point.
Yosuke?
Yep.
Yosuke, sorry to interrupt. Is there any chance you could increase the sound on your computer a little bit more?
Increase. Is it better?
A little bit, yeah. Let's go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. So this is a photo taken in Japan. One is after the greatest Japan earthquake in 2011, and the other is Kobe earthquake in 1995. So in greatest Japan earthquake, we had a lot of international teams, and this is a photo from of the team from South Africa. And also the many Japanese volunteers were deployed to the Kobe earthquake. So one question here is, do they need to have a certification or license to work in these disaster affected areas? And actually the answer is no. If the affected government or the local government accepts them, they don't have to have any certification. So why we need certification systems in this field, especially in Japan? So after the Kobe earthquake in 1995, local government started to design disaster management instructors and leaders course, but there was no unified name for nor a standard course of it. And each organization involved in this emergency management and humanitarian assistance conduct training for their staff respectively, but they are not very structured. And these courses only issue a certificate of attendance, but not the requirement for nor pass the exams. So issues needed to be considered. It's the inconsistent requirements for training for certification of emergency management and how we can maintain the quality of competence after the certification. And the discussion on which organization can certify the competence. So after the Kobe earthquake, some professors and experienced professionals established an NPO, and they started the certification system in Japan. And today I want to introduce two systems in Japan. One is Bōsaishi, or Disaster Prevention Officer. So this is a certification by Japanese NPO, and it started from 2003. And as of now, more than 240,000 people are certified. And in order to be certified, applicants have to attend a 2-day training course and then pass the exam, and also attend the emergency life-saving course. And the training is provided by many public and private organizations designated by this NPO. And the participants or applicants are mainly disaster prevention officers in the government and private companies, and the students, housewives, etc. And even elementary school students, very young people, can be certified if they attend this 2-day training course. And once they are certified, there is no need to renew the certification. And another certification system in Japan is called Kiki Kanrishi, or Emergency Management Officer. So again, this is a certification by a Japanese NPO, and it started from 2011. And originally it was conducted by an academic society, Japan Emergency Management Association. And the requirements, applicants have to attend a 3-day training course for introductory grade 2, or 4-day training course for advanced course grade 1. And then they have to pass the exam. And the grade 2 introductory course has 2 types of certification. One is natural disaster, and the second is social risk. And the applicant must be a member of this NPO as well. And the training is provided only by this NPO, and the participants are mainly emergency management officers in the government and the private companies. And this certification is valid only for 3 years, so every 3 years they need to renew the certification. And the number of certified people are not released, but it should be much lower than Bōsaishi. Okay. And I compared with the 2 Japanese systems against the CEM and the TQC, but I think CEM will be covered by the other panels. So I just want to mention that the CEM by International Association for Emergency Management has started in 1993, and as of now, more than 2,500 people were certified. And TQC by TIEMS has started 2020, and currently we have 10 certified members in TQC and 1 in TQAC, TIEMS Qualification Associate certification. So this is just the comparison of the requirements for certification. So for Japanese 2 system, this is open to everyone. So anyone can actually attend the training courses by the NPO and can be certified. But in both CEM and the TQC, the applicants must have a lot of rich work experience, and basically they need to have bachelor degree. and other requirements such as participation in exercise, experience in teaching, etc. And especially in TQC, we needed to have some knowledge and skills on international perspective and not only emergency management. TQC needs disaster prevention and recovery skills and knowledge as well. And this is a comparison of the training curriculum and the contents of exam. And in Japanese two system, Bosaishi and Kikikanrishi, applicants must take the training courses developed by the NPOs. So it means that skills required for certification are set by the certification body, I mean these NPOs, and the study materials are developed by these NPOs. And regarding the training curriculum, I think I got the impression that it relatively put the focus on natural disaster and its preparation. I think one of the reasons is that Japan is very natural disaster prone countries, and we have many types of disasters, natural disasters. So that's the reason why they focus on natural disasters and its preparation. And its focus is on skills upgrading through the certification process. So as I said, without any experience in this field, they can attend these training courses and can be certified. So the main purpose of certification in Japan, the two systems, is skills upgrading through the certification. And in contrast, CEM and the TQC, the applicants do not need to take any specific course before the exams, but of course they have to have rich experience in the field of disaster and emergency management. And I would say the focus of CEM and the TQC is skill level certification for those who already have rich experience instead of skills upgrading through the certification process. And regarding the recognition and the evaluation of the certification systems, all the four systems which are introduced here is the certification by NPOs. So it's not official qualifications by governments. And regarding Bosaishi and the Kikikanrishi, the two systems in Japan, the recognition in Japan is very high and increasing. For example, this is the ID card of my Bosaishi and the Kikikanrishi. But if people look at this card in Japan, in the affected area, people will see me as the professionals of disaster or emergency management. But of course, this is the system only in Japan. So these systems are almost unknown outside of Japan. And the CEM has certain degree of recognition in US and internationally. So the certified members sometimes use the title of CEM for their name card, email signature, and LinkedIn as well. And for TQC, so far we have only 11 certified members, so recognition is still low, so we still have to work on it. And lastly, the evaluation of the certification. As I highlighted here, it is up to the employers on how to evaluate these certifications, and it depends on the disaster affected areas if they want to accept the people with these certifications. So in conclusion, Japan's two system, its focus is more on training, while the CEM and the TQC, the international certification system, its focus is on proving their abilities for those who already have rich work experience. And all the four certification systems are by NGOs and not official, not by government. So it's up to employers or disaster affected areas on how to evaluate, how to prioritize those who are already certified people. And the last is my thoughts. However, I believe it is still important, even if these certifications are not official, it is still important for disaster responders like us to show our emergency and disaster management, to show we are the emergency and the disaster management experts in order to, before going to the disaster affected areas. Okay, that's all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, dear President, dear colleague, thank you for the invitation, of course, and I will try to explain in few lines what happened in Europe after the early or young experience that the Europe community is developing. In order to talk about the certification of technical and formal competencies relating to emergency management in Europe, we must first see how Europe faces and manages the emergency themselves. Since 2010, the European Union has modified the existing international cooperation agreement belonging from 1992, creating and making an operational and a special management harmonization a guidance department, the European Directorate General of Civil Protection and Humanitarian AIDS Operation, the DG ECHO, which at last is the European response of the United Nations Office for Humanitarian Affairs. Through the DG ECHO, the European Union works closely with non-governmental organizations, NGO, specialized United Nations agency, including OCHA, as well as with the International Committee of the Red Cross and the International Federation of Red Cross Societies and of the Red Crescent. EU member states, however, cannot participate in rescue operations as individual or with bilateral agreement with other international organizations, but they are part of the European Civil Protection Mechanism, the UCPM. The problem is that each member state of the European Community has the duty and the responsibility to develop its own national emergency response system. Furthermore, administrative subdivisions such as regions, departments, etc., often also have their own response mechanism under the coordination of the national one. An example is the forest fire prevention system, which in Italy is managed individually by 20 regions under the operational guideline of the Civil Protection Department. The variety of operational, administrative, legal, and technical protocol may not help cooperation and interoperability. Therefore, the DG ECHO has incorporated the European Civil Protection Mechanism existing since 2001. It's composed the duty, the task of the DG ECHO and the UCPM is to strengthen cooperation between the UE countries and 9 participating states on civil protection to improve prevention, preparedness, response to disaster. These are the actual phases of the participant of the national UCPM, European UCPM. How it works? Okay, when an emergency overwhelms the response capability of a country in Europe and beyond, it can request assistance through the mechanism. The Commission plays a key role in coordination. The disaster response worldwide contributed last of the 75% on transport and operational cost of deployment. Following a request from the assistant to the mechanism, the Emergency Response Coordination Center mobilizes assistance and expertise. Normally, the RCC monitors events around the globe and ensure rapid deployment on emergency support through a direct link with national and civil protection authorities. Moreover, specialized teams and equipment such as firefighter planes, search and rescue, and medical teams can be mobilized at short notice for deployment inside and outside Europe. In 2019, facing the COVID emergency, the civil protection mechanism was boosted with a special agency, the Rescue EU. The aim was to protect citizens from disaster and manage emergency risk, strengthen European preparedness for disaster, and boost the capacity to respond to crises in Europe, such as wildfire, medical emergency, chemical, biological, radiological, and so on. Alongside an important network of bodies certifying capabilities and practice in the field of emergency response. That's normally each state member use or try to be certified himself, to which the organization to turn for their own quality and recognition needs. The DG ECHO and its operational arm, the UCPM, as anticipated, is based on the identification of a subject or specific topics to prove to be fundamental important for the purpose of emergency management and response, creating at last a real network of experts. It could be the certification of institution and instrumental entities body that they formally requested to be validated and demonstrated to possess specific capability or carry out a particular task, such as aforementioned Red Cross or university, research institutes, etc. The certification of knowledge, training, operational protocol, policies, good practice that have proven to be applied at the European level, and then subsequently can be specific European law or guideline. They can become and applied in the UCPN procedures, which test them through the international exercise tools, such the EU MODEX exercise. Finally, the know-how, tools, and technological innovation action, training topics, etc., which are developed within the European project, always through a verification and validation process, can be certified and become formal assess and guideline that the member state adopt in national activity related to the preparation, management, and response to emergency. I'm sorry, but it was the wrong one. Okay, here it is. Okay, for example, TIEMS in this moment is participating in two important European projects, FireRes and FireLog, in which one of the tasks is to propose to the DG ECHO unique incident command system and disaster management to be validated and then to enter as a certification system itself. As we see, the topics is certainly articulated and complex. It must take in account the profound diversity and the peculiarity of the individual member state, but it must ensure harmonization, interoperability, and governance. Over time, therefore, starting from consolidated body, the United Europe developed specific strategy plans and related certification protocols guidelines. In this case, now we have several levels of skills and specialization certificated. For example, advanced healthcare specialization, users, urban self-rescue specialists, high pumping device units that enter from they are deployed in any country affected by floods, etc. Responsive to chemical, biological, radiological, etc. incidents, and then a cross-border cooperation module for headquarters, floods, forest fire, etc. Now, so the problem is to try to harmonize at the European level something that should become from each member states. As I told, the certification process is just a recent need of the European community. The way they adopted is mostly to ensure each cross-border capability and to boost their operational skills, and in the meanwhile to create a protocol of certification of this proposed response for the rescue or for the management in case of emergency. I think that's it's a brief explanation. I'm here for any question, of course. I try to explain in a political correct way how the European community is facing, taking account that the European community is a young body. And first of all, you have to manage with a lot of differences between member states. So the national level will be more and more important to be recognized at the European level. And the future of the challenge is to create and harmonize European certification that's taking account what already exists and the good practice or guideline that already exists in each member state. For me, it's whole. I hope to be enough clear, and I give you the floor.
Okay, good morning. So I start with a stamp, certified. You know, we need a stamp. The stamp is related to specific person. So we are certified.
Sandro, sorry to interrupt. Can you go into presentation mode to the because at the moment it looks like you're sharing the slides. Can you go to there?
Yeah, I'm sharing the slide. Can you see my slide?
Yes, just click on the slideshow where you were just now.
So, is okay?
Okay, go on. That's fine.
Okay. So we are certifying the people, not organization, not institution, but the single people. I have been asking to cover 2 certification schemes. One is from International Association Emergency Managers, but it has already covered in the previous presentation I've seen. So maybe Yosuko Kita has covered more or less completely. And you have here all the reference link that, where you can find more information. The International Association of Emergency Managers offer 2 types of certification: the Associate Emergency Manager, AEM, certificate, and the Certified Emergency Manager, CEM certificates. The second certification scheme I was asked for to investigate was is coming from Australia and New Zealand, and is offered by the National Council for Fire and Emergency Service in Australia and New Zealand. So I think this slide has been covered already. I want to go through the motivation why we decided to develop a new certification scheme. And we have been looking through this International Emergency Management Organization scheme, certification scheme, and we have had an impression, when I say we, I mean the TIEMS has had the impression that was not created to create a common language and a common understanding. That is the main goal of TIEMS certification scheme, to create a common language and a common understanding among those working in emergency and disaster management internationally. And that is really important. Please keep in mind this problem of create a common language and a common understanding. These are a few numbers that I've had from our good friend, La Reporter, and they have already been mentioned before, and they are changing day by day. The second certification scheme that I have been looking for is coming from this National Council for Fire and Emergency Service in Australia and New Zealand, and it is called Emergency Management Professionalization Scheme, EMPS. And here there is a link where you can find all information about this certification scheme. Again, the question was why TIEMS want to launch a new certification scheme, and why it is complementary to the already existing EMPS in Australia and New Zealand. From our understanding, we understood that the certification scheme in Australia and New Zealand is available for a select number of emergency management roles which carry the highest level of impact and consequence. So this means that not everybody can apply to be certified according to EMPS certification scheme, but people has to go through the organization for which she or he is working. So that is why we we started with TIEMS certification scheme, this TQC and TQAC development. It is 4 steps and have been presented already from Harald Drager. But I want to attract your attention on step 3, where the applicant does an online proctoring examination by using PROCT-free solution. That is what is the main difference with the other certification schemes, because other certification schemes, they normally do some paperwork, try to demonstrate that you have the right study, you have the right training activity, and so on. Well, we do also examination, and the examination is based on 4 most relevant industrial standards and guidelines, because we think, TIEMS thinks that to have this common language and common understanding, you must have a common reading and a common background. So we have these 4 examinations, and I can guarantee that they are really quite hard to pass examination, and they are based on questions related to international cooperation, questions related to ISO 31000 risk management guidelines, questions related to INSARAC guidelines, and questions related to Sendai framework 2015-2030. And the questions are organized on essay questions and multiple choice questions. So we can be sure that after the TIEMS certification, people can talk and can understand each other when they talk about Sendai framework, when they talk about INSARA guidelines, when they talk about ISO risk management guidelines and standards. And well, today we have done a kind of about 20 certification, or we have a 20 candidate certification from 10 countries. Results have been already reported here, but we are looking to tomorrow. So I, at least myself, I see 3 problems. One is that we need, TIEMS need a larger recognition of emergency management communities of our certification scheme. And the recognition has to go through large institution of the real value of the TIEMS. And I think that Harald, our president, is working in this direction. He was mentioning he has presented TQC, TQAC at G20 in India some time ago. And the third point I see is to set up a solid TIEMS, TQC, TQAC team working on the continuous updating of examination questions. This point is a real central point. It makes the difference. We are doing examination based on deep knowledge of at least 4 standards and guidelines, and that is make the great difference. And I think that TIEMS should have a solid team working on this continuous updating, because it is really hard to go deeply into standards and guidelines and to know exactly how to formulate questions for the applicants. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever people are listening from. So I have the distinct pleasure to have both the TQC certification and the CEM certification. There's only a couple of us around the world that have managed to do both at this point in time. In relation to EMPS, so the Emergency Management Professionalisation Scheme in Australia is very much for responders, people who manage an individual emergency event, so individual firefighters, public information officers, logistics officers, as compared to both TQC and CEM, which are about emergency managers, people who have a response over the prevention, preparedness, response and recovery frame of the of our work. So 2 distinct focuses on the work. I would suggest that our TQC and CEM are probably more beneficial for the broader professionalization of the industry, because those 2 certifications lead to that holistic view of the world. I have published a paper on it, which will go up on the discussion board for all those online and will be available to those afterwards. However, if you search on my name through Google, etc., you'll find a paper for professionalization, certification for emergency management leaders, which is open source and does compare academically both CEM, TQC, and EMPS. So that's there if people want to have a look at it, or you can contact me on LinkedIn and I'll send it to you. Just for information, there is another system starting in Australia, which again is looking at certifying the response and recovery people. So those actively responding to a job, and it's being looked at by the Australasian Institute of Emergency Services. That is developing at the moment. It is where TQC was a couple of years ago, as far as starting to try and get it understanding. Unfortunately, my dog wants attention. He's not going to get the attention. What can you do when a 50-kilo German Shepherd wants your attention? You have to listen. So that's the two systems. I think it's quite, we've moved a long way with TQC. And the question will be now where we go to in the future.